Good evening from the Channel's newsroom here in London. The UK will hold a general election before Christmas. Members of Parliament have backed the bill, a win for the Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who's been pushing for an early ballot.
There is only one way to get Brexit done in the face of this unrelenting parliamentary obstructionism, this endless, willful, fingers crossed, not me gov refusal to deliver on the mandate of the people, and that is, Mr. Speaker, to refresh this Parliament and give the people a choice.
Support grew for the vote after the European Union agreed to delay Brexit until January the 31st.
We always said we wanted an election, we do want an election, but we wanted no deal to be taken off the table. We've now had confirmation from all 28 EU member states that no deal is off the table, so we're going to go out there with the biggest campaign this party has ever mounted.
I will go into that general election with a Liberal Democrat very strong position to stop Brexit, and if people elect a majority Liberal Democrat government on day one as Prime Minister, I will revoke Article 50.
More than 20 bodies have been recovered from a landslide in western Cameroon. Dozens are still missing after the disaster which happened late on Monday night. Heavy rainfall caused a hill to collapse, destroying houses when most people were at home. The Prime Minister of Lebanon, Saad al-Hariri, has announced his resignation amid unprecedented protests.
من 13 يوم والشعب اللبناني ناطر قرار بحل سياسي يوقف التدهور. وأنا حاولت طول هالفترة لاقي مخرج نستمع من خلاله لصوت الناس ونحمي البلد من المخاطر الأمنية واقتصادية ومعيشية. اليوم ما بخفيكم وصلت لطريق مسدود وصار لازم نعمل صدمة كبيرة لمواجهة الأزمة. أنا طالع على قصر بعبدة لتقديم استقالة الحكومة.
It follows more violence on the streets of Beirut as people demonstrated for a 13th day against political corruption and the mismanagement of finances, which has pushed the country towards economic collapse. The protests have crippled Lebanon, forcing the closure of banks, businesses and schools. The United Nations is calling for an investigation into the deaths of dozens of Iraqis. More than 70 people were killed in the latest round of protests against the government, and hundreds were injured during clashes with security forces and militia groups at the weekend. Funerals have now been held for some of the victims. Assistance Mission for Iraq and an Iraqi government committee found evidence of wrongdoing by security forces.
In both those reports, they recognise that excessive force has been used, so that's on the part of the authorities. So I think it's very much incumbent on the authorities to ensure, at least as much as they can, their own security forces act with due restraint in accordance with international standards. 2
British men are recovering from a shark attack in Australia. The tourists who'd been snorkelling near Airlie Beach in Queensland were reportedly wrestling and thrashing about in the water when the incident happened. A 28-year-old had his right foot bitten off in the attack, and his 22-year-old friend suffered serious calf lacerations.
One of the male patients was attacked first, and the shark is believed to return and come back and attack the second patient. Both patients were loaded onto the vessel that they were out on the day cruise. There was believed to be 2 international paramedics on board that vessel who have instigated first aid treatment.
And finally, 2 mean feats of human endurance. A Nepali mountaineer and former British Marine has smashed the record for scaling the world's highest mountains, climbing 14 peaks in just over 6 months. 36-year-old Nims Purja began his challenge in April on Annapurna Mountain in Nepal and completed his final ascent in China. It took the previous record holder almost 8 years to complete the mammoth effort. Every peak is more than 8,000 metres above sea level.
This is possible!
And from the highest points on Earth to a world first underwater, a freestyle diver in Turkey has set a new record, holding her breath while swimming 100 metres without fins. 34-year-old Shahika Erjaman completed her challenge in the icy waters of Cilindere Cave. She dedicated her achievement to the Turkish Republic and Turkish soldiers. And that's your international news around the world in 5.